Hey everybody, I'm Mikey Andersen, and this is Fantasy Avenue, where each week we talk about everything you need to know in the world of fantasy football. Hello and welcome back to Fantasy Avenue, your road to fantasy football victory. I am Mikey Andersen. Today's episode is Week 6 review and Week 7 insight, so thank you for hopping in. Just wanted to say before the episode started, wanted to shout out Miles Weber. He's in one of my leagues. I absolutely fleeced that man. I used my trading skills, my use of what people need. It's what I like to do. You know, you really need to know what other people need, and that's how you trade. So I was able to trade a quarterback and a kicker in this league. Let me pull it up real quick. What did I trade for here? Yeah, so he needed a quarterback and a kicker, and I know this. I needed a tight end. I know this. So I was able to trade my bench quarterback and a random kicker for Zach Ertz. So, yeah, just wanted to point that out. If you know, you know. And let's hop into this episode. Thank you, Miles. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Miles Weber, at Miles Weber 01. But, yeah, let's hop into the Week 6 insight and Week 7 review. This episode, we're going to react to last week's action, look at the studs and duds, look at the top waiver ads, and finish with some injury news. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Let's react to the last week first. It was a great week of action all around the NFL. Let me go to Week 6 here real quick. Yep, so let's just look at the top games first of all. Denver Broncos. Yeah. Okay, that's all I need to say about the Denver Broncos. What other close games? Now, another boring week of Thursday Night Football. And, again, I'm trying to get the schedule to be better with Thursday. Like, being able to talk about Thursday Night Football, you know, because this episode is coming out on a Saturday. So this week's Thursday Night already happened, which kind of sucks. But last week's Thursday Night Football, a 12-7 thriller, Washington versus Chicago. This week's Thursday Night was a little bit better, but yep, I just needed to point that matchup out. Let's look at any other big games. I was busy last weekend, so I didn't really get to watch a lot of football, except the Broncos, obviously. Miami, another just fall. No Tua is a big problem. Very inconsistent. It's something you want to watch out for when you're looking at players like that. Tampa Bay falls to Pittsburgh, and I don't even know how Tom Brady didn't pick apart that defense. Like, Tom Brady is different this year in terms of like his not even his consistency, but his ceiling, his top ability. That Steelers defense had what I saw on Instagram, and so I'm not 100% sure on this, all 5 starting defensive backs out. And, like, hearing that and then hearing that Tom Brady didn't go insane, that he didn't score 1 billion points, it's crazy to me. I don't know how. I don't know. There's something different with Tom Brady this year. It might be, like, I don't want to blame it on his marriage problems, but there's definitely some distraction with him. It's hard. He only scored 12 points in a game that vintage Tom Brady would score 30 and the Bucs would get a dominant win. So that's crazy. I don't really know what's going on with Tom. Give him time because he's a beast, but I don't know. Other good games. Somebody I wanted to talk about real quick. This isn't really a good game as the Panthers absolutely suck. Christian McCaffrey has gone away from that. The Panthers are just fully rebuilding, you know. They're not looking for the playoffs. They're not looking for anything. I think I could only name like 4 players on that whole roster at this point. But Christian McCaffrey moves on to San Francisco. This will be super interesting to see how this goes. He's the 4th-ranked running back right now in fantasy. He's non-injured this year, you know, like he's having a great no-injury year. The lowest carries he's got in a game is 8. And in that same game, he got 9 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. 9 catches on 9 targets. So he's playing like a beast this year. I'm super excited to see how that 49ers offense is utilized. It might be too many. It might be not too many, but there might not be quite enough ball touches. Let me word that differently. There might not be enough touches on the football to go around in that offense with their playmakers they have, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel. But it's going to be a very exciting offense, high scoring, and everyone's going to get a chance to get their touchdowns in that. So it's exciting from a football standpoint. I have Panther fan friends who are honestly kind of feeling okay about it. Like, they know it's a rebuilding time. At least that's what they tell me. I don't know. But anyway, so that's an interesting thing. It was the first week of byes last week in football. The bye week. The bye week is back. It was an interesting thing. I saw a lot of guys in my leagues not do so great there. So that was funny. So again, another big part of fantasy, you got to be aware every week to check your team, to check waivers, to check trades. This is where depth really comes into play. Honestly, like the first 5 weeks they matter, but they don't show what a team is. From week 7 to week 12, as injuries take hold, as bye weeks take hold, as trades take hold, you really see where fantasy managers shine and where they struggle. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. My last talking point, DeAndre Hopkins, he played this last week, so I'll probably be talking about him next week in the Week 7 review. But because he played on Thursday, I just want to shout him out. Had a good 22-point performance against the Saints. It's good to see him back. I've drafted him in a lot of leagues because I knew I could get him in the last rounds, and if I had good depth, I didn't need him. I could have him as a bench role for the first 6 weeks. So that's awesome to see. He's a guy, if you can trade for him now, trade for him now. Like, he is the top trading prospect, I think, right now, because people that have him might not know the value of him right now. So he is the guy that I would say, if you have a chance to trade for him, trade for him. If you have him on your roster, do not trade yet, unless you're getting offered something crazy like Justin Jefferson, a proven top receiver this year. Don't trade him yet. Wait out the year, see how he plays, and I think it's going to be really exciting. Like, one game, he's averaging, he's got 22 points in one game. Like, if he continues that, he'll be one of the top receivers in fantasy. So you don't want to trade until you know where his trends are going. Next week he gets 22, don't trade him. Next week 22, don't trade him. Once he starts going down to more regular numbers, maybe. But honestly, if I say if you have him, don't trade him. If you want him, go out and get him. All right, so let's move to the studs and duds of last week. I do this by going on NFL Fantasy, going to all players, and just looking at their points for week 6. So let's look at it right here. We'll start out with quarterbacks, and we'll move down the list. I think I'm going to go studs and duds because I liked how I did that last week. Let's get into it. Week 6, number 1 quarterback, another just down week of scoring quarterback. Only one quarterback got over the 30-point mark, and that was Joe Burrow. It's good to see Joe Burrow he's having a top 5 season. He's really the only quarterback I think I'm even going to talk about in the studs. It went Joe Burrow, Matt Ryan, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and Marcus Mariota. And Marcus Mariota, they're like, wow, he got on 24 points he scored. That's average at best. He's averaging 14.63 points per game this year. So it's an off week for quarterbacks in general, but I want to shout out Joe Burrow. Let's look at duds real quick for the quarterbacks. We're looking for anything under maybe 10 points, notable players. It doesn't look like it was kind of just a midweek overall for everybody. Geno Smith with only 11. I don't want to say he's falling back down to earth. He's number 7th ranked quarterback in fantasy this year. If you have him, start him. He's still a good player. This is actually who I was mentioning at the start of the episode. I traded to Miles. He's a good player, and Miles is a Seahawks fan. So everything worked out in my favor to be like, here, take Geno Smith. I have Lamar Jackson. Take Geno Smith. But he had an off week there. Another player, Justin Herbert, 8th ranked in fantasy with only 842 against the Broncos. The Broncos defense, for all the hate I give the Broncos as a Broncos fan, their defense is legit. I start them every single week. That's kind of just been my defense this year. Like, I know the Broncos defense is going to put up points, and I know Brandon McManus, the Broncos kicker, is going to put up points because the Broncos offense can't seem to score a touchdown. So I just want to give credit to the Broncos defense. They are lights out against good quarterbacks. And finally, I want to talk about Cooper Rush. It might have been the end of the Cooper Rush thing. It's unfortunate. He wasn't doing good in fantasy, but he was winning games. His fantasy points, he's averaged 8.9 points per game this year. That's including the game he didn't start. But yeah, he's not been a good quarterback fantasy perspective. He's been a great quarterback for the organization. Dak is back. I'll talk about Dak a little bit later for waiver ads, but the Cooper Rush era might be over there. And I really want to see Cooper get a chance. He might not put up the stats, but he knows how to win games. So just completely ignoring the fantasy side of things, I want a team to at least give him a quarterback competition in the near future. Give him a chance to start, legit start, not be a backup who's put into a starting role. Give him a chance to really start. So yeah, there's my duds for quarterbacks. Let's move on to the running backs. We'll go to studs first. Again, it was kind of just a midweek of fantasy. Just a midweek of fantasy. That's all I really have to say. There was not a running back in the 30 range. The top running back was Deion Jackson. I don't even know if you guys know him. He's on the Colts. He's honestly not having a bad year this year in the games that he started or the games that he's played in. He's only got real carries in 2 games against the Broncos and the Jags, and he got 13 and then 28. So, if you're going way down in the depths of people you want to add, maybe him. Number 2, Ramondre Stevenson on the Patriots, another guy you might look to add. Number 9th ranked running back in fantasy. Probably won't be available, but he's a good player, and he's been really good this year so far. Number 3, 4, and 5, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, and Leonard Fournette. There's some guys just playing up to their standards, doing well. I have Austin Eckler, who's the number 1 running back in fantasy this week. I love him. He's so exciting to watch, even as, I don't really love the Chargers, but I love watching him. I love how he runs, and he's small, but he's quick. His celebrations are awesome. He plays video games, everything you want in a guy. So I love him for that. Yeah, there's the studs for running backs in week 6. Let's go to some duds here. Anything under 10 that are real big names. I'm looking for, so I got 2 main guys to talk about here. It looks like we're going to go Aaron Jones, main dud with 7.4 points, the 14th ranked running back in fantasy. He's having a not great year. He's been super inconsistent. His points go 10, 32, 4, 14, 10, 7. You hear that is bad. He gets carries, and that's the only thing that has put him in the top 15 for running back rankings. But he's playing pretty poor, honestly, this year. And then we'll go to Nick Chubb, who was the best running back in fantasy, I believe, coming into last week. 15, 32, 17, 20, 25 points, and last week with only 8. Again, another legit defense. The New England Patriots shut him down pretty well there. It's an off game. Don't pay any attention to it. Nick Chubb, owners, he'll bounce back. Let's move to wide receivers. The number 1 receiver of last week, number 2, 3, So the top 3 receivers of last week are all studs. Jamar Chase popped off in that close game against New Orleans. Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. Again, another kind of midweek of fantasy. Jamar Chase led the way with 32. Stephon Diggs with 30. Tyreek Hill with 29. So no crazy good pop-off player. But a lot of good players. There's also some surprises down in the 8, 9, and 10 range. Paris Campbell, Deontay Pettis, Tyquan Thornton. The app says, this is kind of crazy, 0.4% of leagues have Tyquan Thornton starting. So, yeah, good job if you started him. And, yeah, that's kind of the studs. The good guys are showing that they're good, and some guys like Brandon Ayuk are rising in the ranks. Brandon Ayuk, if he's available, I would pick him up, but I wouldn't trade for him at this point. He's probably not available in your league. If he is, you should definitely pick him up because he's a solid wide receiver 2 or flex option. But with Christian McCaffrey coming in there, that's a lot. There's just not enough chances to make plays for Brandon, I don't think, as either you could say he's a weapon above George Kittle this year because George Kittle isn't playing amazing. But he's, in all honesty, probably the 4th weapon on that team at this point. So that's going to be hard to maintain fantasy points there. And now let's move to some duds in the wide receiver spots. Now, keep in mind, every stud and dud I name, these are all also pointing towards next week in terms of who you should start. Hopefully, as I kind of get more into the fantasy season, with my own football season shutting down, we'll get more. I can't think of the word. Just more difference in between episodes of fantasy. So there's like more variation. That's what I'm looking for in episodes with different segments and stuff. But for now, we'll just go to some duds and studs, and you'll think like every player I say, try to take them in consideration of who you're starting next week, and who you want to pick up on the waiver and stuff. And like I'm not specifically saying go trade for him, but there's, in a way, I am, or just say I'm valuing this guy right now. DK Metcalf, 5.4. That's a tough game. He's having an okay year. The Seahawks they're not necessarily struggling to get going with Geno Smith, but it's inconsistent points with Geno. DK 7, 7, 17, 21, 16, and down to 5. So there was a streak that was really good. It really looks like to me, in the term of trends of who they're playing, good defenses he does bad defenses he does good. So I mean that's predictable to say, but it is a trend that's going with him this season. Another dud. There's not really a lot of big name duds in this last week. Like a lot of the top guys did play pretty well. But I would say the main top name I'm seeing is probably Mike Evans, who's honestly not had he's the 20th ranked receiver in fantasy right now, and it's because he's missed some games, and like he got ejected in part of the Saints game. He missed the Packers game, that kind of stuff. He scored 8.2 against that Steelers defense that somehow, as I've talked about, shut down Tom Brady, at least a little bit, didn't completely shut him down, but slowed their offense down. So I don't really know how that happened, but it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on in terms of Buccaneers weapons. So yeah. Oh, and last one, let's just talk about the Broncos real quick. Whoopsie-doo, Cortland Sutton with 3.4. Woo. Maybe our only chance to do anything on offense. He's had a very consistent year up to this point. If you're a Cortland Sutton owner, I would not be concerned, but all right, let's move on. We're going to tight ends. And this is something I want to go on a quick tangent a bit, a little tight end clip, if you will. Tight ends I've noticed this year, I think I'm going to change my draft strategy. I really do. The top tight ends, Travis Kelce has like tons more points than any other tight end in the league right now, in terms of points scored. I don't really know how to find that, but let's just say, okay, he's averaging 21.83 points per game. Zach Ertz, the number 3 tight end, is averaging 12.14. So if you do the math through 8 games, 21, 12, that's like 80 points more than the number 3. So him and the number 2, Mark Andrews, they are just so far ahead of anybody else. Mark Andrews' average points are 19. Like I think I'm going to consider drafting a top tight end in the next years of fantasy football because of how much a difference is in points. Like Cortland Sutton kind of rises from the depths. You can get value in receivers and running backs, good players becoming great with volume and with just a chance to show themselves. But tight end, there really is just a huge gap between the top guys and good players like Zach Ertz, who I really wanted. I traded for with Miles. Like the difference between the top and the not top, right? The best and the rest is a huge difference, and it is a consistent difference week to week with the best guys always being at the top, and then kind of an inconsistent rest of you never really know where the other guys are going to fall. You just know they're going to fall somewhere. Like one big game as a tight end also, Taysom Hill on the Saints, he plays quarterback, but he had that week in London where he went crazy and scored like 40 points from a tight end, even though most of his points came as rushing. And all that aside, he jumped into like the top 5 in tight ends because one big game can just push you over the top, and yet he was still nowhere close to Travis Kelce. So I think for the next years, I don't want to completely say this, but if I have a chance to draft Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, and I'm saying this for everybody else, if you have a chance to draft Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews with your second pick in the draft, I would do it. If you already have a strong number 1 receiver or running back that you can count on every week to put up big points, draft a top tight end because the difference in points between the best and the rest, as I've said, is such a big difference. There's so much value for just taking that chance. So let's go into the studs real quick. Mike Gesicki with 24.9, Mark Andrews with 23.6, Travis Kelce with 19.2, and Robert Tonyan with 19. Again, I've talked a lot about tight ends, so I think I'm just going to go straight to the duds of last week. But there is a huge gap between the best and the rest. And another part is it's hard for tight ends to bust because like a good week is scoring 10, where as I've said, right, like I've been going for the receiver bus, anybody under 10, but that is a fine week for a tight end. So it's going to be hard. I think I'll just talk about one guy this week, Taysom Hill. Not really a bust, but I really hope if you guys were starting him, you weren't expecting him to put up 33 again like he did against the Seahawks. I might have said the London game. I meant the Seahawks game. That's just not going to happen. He's not going to have 9 attempts for 112 rushing yards again and 3 rushing touchdowns. That's insane. But yeah, so yeah, it's different going from Taysom Hill, quarterback and running back, to Taysom Hill, tight end, and it just depends on his usage. But honestly, Taysom Hill is not a terrible option because of how much ceiling he has for his floor. If you don't have a top tight end who can consistently put up points, like a tight end in the top 5 who has shown this year that he can put up points, like Zach Ertz puts up 15 every week, which is really good for a tight end. Taysom going with a chance, taking a chance on Taysom Hill is not a bad option. Okay, I'm going to look really quickly at kickers and defense just to see if there was any standouts from last week. No real standouts in the kicker perspective. The Jets defense with 23, got to shout them out real quick, against that Green Bay Packers offense. Guys, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers? He's average at best this year. You can blame his receivers, but he's just not. He doesn't look any better than the top guys. I saw a stat that like 5 borderline Hall of Famer quarterbacks in the league, right? Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, they're all under 500, which means have a losing record. There's something going on with the Packers in total. The Packers' offensive line is struggling. Everything is struggling there. And the Jets' defense, you have to give them credit. They're playing super well this year. The last 3 weeks, they had 13, 10, and 23. And now they're playing that Broncos offense. I would say we're going to move right into waivers. This is a perfect segment. If you have, if you're looking at a so-so defense right now, I'm pretty set as defenses go. But if you don't know who to pick up as a defense, and the Jets are just criminally underrated because they are the Jets, and no one thinks about them as being a good team in the league. If you have a chance to pick up the Jets defense, and I believe the top 3 defenses this week are the Broncos. We've already talked about them. The Buccaneers, I believe, are the number 1 defense this week, going against the Panthers without Christian McCaffrey. Everything points there. And then the number 2 defense is the Jets defense against the Broncos offense. So if you have a chance to pick up those teams, the Jets, they're just so underrated. No one really looks at them as a contender. They're kind of like Browns players have been in the past couple of years. The Browns are getting better, right, as Nick Chubb asserts himself as a top guy. But people just look at these teams and think they're trash just because they've always kind of been. So if you have a chance to pick up that Jets defense, I would go ahead and do that if I was you. Any other waiver ads? I wanted to touch up real quick on Dak Prescott. Super exciting that he's back. I don't know how good he's going to be, but he is available in almost every league right now. So if you need a backup quarterback, like snag him right now before people start picking him up. A lot of people are picking him up right now. So you're definitely gonna miss your chance. But yeah, if you have a chance to pick up these guys, I would definitely go for it. Let's look at anybody else who is probably available at this point in the year for you guys in your leagues. One thing I'm seeing, Terry McLaurin, big name, not having a great year. He's a good pickup. I really like Devin Duvernay this week on the Baltimore Ravens receiver. If you're needing somebody, Tony Pollard is another guy you can probably find. And I don't know. Actually, yeah, you probably can't find Jamal Williams, but I think he'll be good this week coming off bye. He does have to compete with DeAndre Swift, but I say for Jamal Williams, until Jamal Williams doesn't put up good numbers, until you just kind of have to take a chance when you start him, until he shows that it's DeAndre Swift's offense, I wouldn't take Jamal Williams out of your lineup, because until he shows he can't do really well, I would definitely keep him. And my final waiver ad for this week is Keenan Allen. Now he's been so injured this year. Only he's played one game in which he scored 10 points. But if you need a older, right? I mean, he's the older, consistent wide receiver. He'll be available. I think I'm looking at my team right now. I have Khalil Herbert. I think I'm looking at right now. Khalil Herbert is going back to a complimentary role to David Montgomery. He's kind of fading right now. I think I'm going to select Keenan Allen because I really like Keenan Allen and how he plays, and I'm pretty set on running backs in this current league. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up Keenan Allen. He's a good, consistent guy, and he'll be great for your team. Okay, so that is my waiver ads. Let me look at my to-dos for this week, but we're getting down to the end of the episode. Thank you for stopping in. We're gonna go to injury news real quick on NFL.com, and then we'll get you on your way. One thing I want to shout out right now before I forget, the Fantasy Avenue Instagram should be up either today or tomorrow, as this episode is coming out Saturday night. So go ahead and go and follow them if you have Instagram. We'll be posting clips of like little things here and there, right? Like little clips like that tight end clip. It'll be little just audio clips, my rankings. It should be good, and it should help. I mean, if you're listening to this, it's not obviously going to help that, but it should help bring more notice to the pod. I'm super excited for the Instagram. So if you have Instagram, go ahead and follow at Fantasy Avenue. It'll come out real soon. And yeah, let's go to some injury news. I'm looking on NFL Fantasy in case anybody else, or NFL.com, excuse me, in case anybody else wants to look up their injury news. You can also just look on Fantasy. But yeah. Okay, here's our injuries. Any notable names? I'm just going down the list. At this point, the most notable I'm seeing right now is Russell Wilson. And this doesn't really matter from a fantasy perspective because he's having a poor year. But for Bronco receivers, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, that's something to keep an eye on with Brett Ripens starting at quarterback there. Anything that happens to a quarterback affects the rest of the team, obviously. But as for injuries go this week, there's not a lot of notable outs. James Conner is, I think, the only guy I can think of off the top of my head that is a consistent fantasy player right now and is like on injured, like not injured reserve, but is just inactive in practice this week. There's a lot of questionable guys like Keenan Allen coming back. But really, I would say James Conner is the main guy you want to watch out. Just don't start him. And yeah, that's basically all the injury news we have for this week. Again, check out the Instagram, Fantasy Avenue. Thank you for stopping by for this week 6 insight, or week 6 review, and week 7 insight. Hope you learned some stuff. Hope you had a good time, and thank you for stopping in again. I'm Mikey Andersen. This is Fantasy Avenue, your road to fantasy football victory, and we will see you next week. Peace.